Okay, welcome everyone to In the Driver's Seat, the podcast that is all about exploring how to improve the value of your business, your company, and empowering owners to engage in the conversation of how to build a value company and work towards a successful exit much sooner than maybe 1 or 2 years before they actually want to sell. My name is Simon Zryd. Together with Steven Kohnke, we co-host this podcast. We're both partners at Denver Business Coach. We're both certified exit planning advisors and certified value builders. And today we can add we're both certified profit first professionals as well. There's a couple more that will roll out over time. But all of that meaning that we've been in this industry of value building, I think, for a good decade now, and engage in these conversations on a daily basis with business owners. And now we want to bring this conversation to owners sooner. And the reason behind that truly is because of just the statistics around what is happening for business owners who have built a business, and really that inspired us to say, okay, let's bring this front and center to people in our spheres and beyond. So, Steven, first of all, welcome. What is the reality around exiting a business? So I'm a business owner. I've put in 20 years, maybe more, sweat equity, whatnot. I'm ready to exit. What does that actually look like in the real world?
Very similar to putting your house on the market and then having it sold a week later. Not really.
Oh, really? There you have it. Good luck.
Never done. No. And I mean, the reality here is 3 out of 4 businesses that go to sell, take their business to the market, do not sell. It doesn't include the ones that shut down. Those are not counted in those stats. That coupled with the stat of anywhere from 70 to 90% of a business owner's overall wealth is tied up in that business, that 3 out of 4 of them do not sell. So that's where we see a major risk in entrepreneurship and business ownership. That's why we exist to partner with businesses and making sure that they are building something sellable. So when the time does come and they do want to put it up on the market, it can actually sell, and not only sell, but sell for a number that will actually be able to fund the next venture in their life, whether that's retirement, buying another business, becoming an investor, whatnot. We want to make sure that not only they're selling, but they're selling for a number that makes sense for them, and
Yeah.
they don't feel threats by their business.
Yeah. So there's a lot of equity that's potential equity that's been built over a lot of years, but unless you can liquidate that,
Yeah.
it just evaporates if you close down your business. So let's make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So in that context of selling a business, we've talked in our last episode about the equation of how a business value is determined with a number around profit, EBITDA, and then a multiple. And we thought today we want to zoom in a little bit more around profit. And specifically, as we mentioned a little earlier, Stephen and I are both profit first professional, which means we're implementing a methodology into businesses that is called profit first. And maybe let's start out. I think a lot of business owners probably have heard of it, but might not be aware exactly what it is or what the purpose of it is or how it works. So we thought today might be good to just explore that a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe Stephen, you and I can explain what the profit first methodology actually is. I'll have you start, even though we decided before the podcast I would start, but right now the flow is better if you're starting, and then I'll fill in the back gap.
Perfect. I love how that works.
Yeah.
Changing it up on the fly. We're adaptable here. Yeah, so profit first is a methodology that essentially looks at real revenue of a business. We can define that later if we need to, and make sure that you are doing the opposite of GAAP accounting. So we're really looking at taking a percentage away from that real revenue for profit, taking a percentage away for owners' compensation, owners' draw, taking a percentage away for taxes, and then what is left after those 3 distributions, that's what you have to operate the business on. Mike Michalowicz is the guy who came up with this whole thing, and he talks about the analogy of toothpaste, which I always kind of appreciated. It's, when you have a lot of it, you're going to use a lot on your toothbrush, and when you're at the very end of your toothpaste roll, you're trying to conserve it for as long as possible. So the idea is that you're really just kind of pinching and forcing yourself to work in a tighter confine to operate the business, and not just looking at one bank account and saying, "Oh, I got a bunch of money in here. I could spend this." And then, we have clients that appear to this, talk with business owners that this happens to. Sometimes they're surprised by their tax bill and they're like, "Shit, I don't have that money." Um, this method, one, protects you there, and then also make sure that your business has a cash reserve, and that you're paying yourself. So, to kind of summarize those distributions, I always think about it as you pay the business, you pay yourself, you pay the government, and what's left over, that's what you can operate the business on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think especially business owners, like in their early stages, I would say, like as they're building their company, oftentimes we ask them, so how is your business doing, or how do you know that you had a good month or a good year, etc. And it comes down to, how much money's in the bank account. And then also this conversation around, okay, the P&L shows I make a lot of profit. Where is that money, right? And really understanding that. And I think one thing that I want to add to this also is, it is really a mindset shift, and there is a practical implementation of that in terms of really like almost like an envelope system, like you're putting money into bank accounts, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But there's also really this mindset shift where you as an owner get paid not just because for all the work that you're doing and the profit that the business is producing, but you get paid, number one, because you're an employee of your business essentially, or you're an operator in your business. But you should also be paid as the owner and basically an investor. The same way as you had stock in another company, you would get paid dividends for your ownership. This managing profit and putting money aside for profit starts separating this I am the business, and just put some distinction between I'm getting compensated because I do technical work in the business, and I'm getting compensated because I'm the owner of the business and I deserve dividends and profit from it, which now leads into like why do we implement this with businesses? Because ultimately that is what an investor is looking for, is what if I invest money, what is the profit that I can pull out of this? And the sooner you start setting that up in your business and you start managing towards that, you build a much healthier company. So do we want to go just briefly into a little bit of the technicality? You explained it already, or is that too deep to go for the purpose of this podcast?
No, I think we look at maybe a little bit about what a rollout would look like. Generally, of course, every business has their own specifications of allocations based on size, and then we also benchmark for against best in class. So there's a lot of customization that goes into it, but the practicality of starting it. I'm doing this with two clients right now, actually. Step one is opening the bank accounts. What's your step one?
Yeah, I mean, step one, I think, is the analysis of really understanding the distinction between revenue and real revenue. I think is important. You've alluded to that a little bit, but so going through the profit and loss statement and helping the owner really understand what is revenue, real revenue, which is a profit first term, true cost of goods sold, and identifying like how much profit have they generated in the past, have they compensated themselves. So actually understanding what is going on, to then say, based on that, profit first has like these revenue ranges, and based on where your real revenue is at, you should put X percentage away for profit. There's target allocations for profit, owners pay, tax, and operating expenses. And so we usually, before we open bank account, I usually do an analysis of what is happening, and based on which bucket you fall in, what do we want to move towards to? And yes, then the technical step comes into place of actually setting up the envelope / bank accounts. And but usually it is quite a drastic conversation of how the hell am I supposed to, operate to 10-15% profit plus taxes. Oftentimes we're looking at really true profit of 30% or something, and a lot of business don't operate it at those profit margins. And then it's like, okay, then we usually look at the expenses and say, can we cut expenses? And we're usually aim for about 10%, I think, in the beginning, just to have a benchmark. Because most businesses, if they're honest, they can trim. There's fat there. There's subscriptions, insurance that hasn't been quoted. There's just, it's not as lean as it could be. And then we look where we at, and ultimately we then have to come up with a game plan. And I don't know how long. So you're working with 2 clients right now. How long from current allocation to target allocation are you working within a year, 6 months, 8 months?
It's about a 6 to 8 month rollout.
Yeah.
I just finished one last year with a client, and it ended up being about 8 or 9 months until we got to the allocations that we were really looking to get to. So it's not an overnight thing. I've had a couple of clients get scared at the initial, be like, hey, this is what we need to be doing, and they're clearing 10% in a normal GAAP accounting way. And I'm saying, well, we got to take 10% of profit. We got to take some out for owner's pay and taxes and put those in accounts, and then you can operate the business.
Yeah.
Like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
But it's not an overnight thing, right? Like it's a gradual build where we start with maybe can we spare 1%? Start putting those away and seeing how we can adjust as we go. But we have our goals set, and it can be a 6 to 12 month period before getting close to there.
Yeah, I see that too. And same thing, like it's scary in the beginning, but the point of it, right, is not to completely change all business systems and all of that. Like, unless you're really bleeding and you need a cold hard look at, how do you get to profitability or break even at least. But for the most part, it is getting an awareness. And what I like is it puts a framework to the owner and us as advisors to have conversations. How can we be leaner? How can we be more efficient? How can we be more profitable? And I think in the context of value building, right, that is ultimately super valuable. But that's ultimately what a buyer is looking for is a lean, well-run organization. And yeah, so let's see. So we talked about profit first methodology. Again, this was not intended to be like a full rundown of the whole methodology in and of itself, but what it is. We talked about how does implementing profit first methodology contribute to building a valuable business. Is there more to say about that, or did we kind of?
I think we covered everything in that realm, I believe. We've talked about this in the past, the differences between an owner operator, financial buyer, strategic buyer. And when you have done several years of profit first implementation, you're going to have a nice looking bank account, and you'll have your operations pretty lean. So just to reiterate the point, when a financial buyer is coming in, they're looking for a return on investment of the money that they spend buying your business. And if you can show them projections of how you've been able to, put 10% away into a profit account, put another 5% away into a draw account, and save for taxes as well, and you still have something of an operating profit I mean, a buyer looks at that and is like, wow, look at what I can get for my money. And the value is going to go up when you're able to show that. So if you have this methodology and you have it implemented and you're able to show that to a potential buyer and see, look at the growth that I have, look at the sustainability, look at the bank accounts, they're going to see that as something they'll pay a premium for.
Yeah. I think one of the things from I don't want to say that. I think it really fosters or is a catalyst for innovation.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the reality is you can probably look at businesses and they're very, very similar. Like you take a plumbing company in Denver, in Colorado Springs, in Austin, wherever. At the end of the day, their most numbers are pretty average, I think, or it looks pretty much the same. Someone that implements profit first, I believe, uh, early in their business journey is forced to innovate in a way that really helps you get into best in class territory.
Yeah.
And so it, yes, it's tight and it is hard to work towards those numbers and all of it, but at the end of the day, you, by doing so, and if you can achieve that, you automatically are in the best, not automatically in the best, but you're moving towards best in class territory. And I think that is something where we also talk about it takes time to implement solutions that are really that efficient. Like you can't just do that within a year or two runway left. And so the earlier you implement that and the earlier you're forced to be innovative to meet certain metrics, ultimately the longer you have building a valuable business. And I think time plays a critical part in that too. Yeah. So for someone that is interested in implementing profit first, are there some misconceptions that you've heard, or are there some hesitations or objections and why someone should do it, or are there situations where it's maybe not the best thing to do either?
It's interesting. I think the big pushback that I've gotten over the years of trying to install this system into clients' businesses is they want to use the money for one. So be the seeing far enough ahead into the future and saying, hey, this is a smart idea, sometimes is a mental block for some business owners, where they see, oh, I'm putting off cash that I could be using to reinvest into the business. Sure. Um, Percentages and allocations I get pushed back on, but I always go back to COVID, the time of COVID, when anytime someone gives us pushback on this, and the clients that I had that had been doing profit first for many years ahead of that, they were pretty comfortable through COVID, with a decline of clients, and they had, for lack of a better term, emergency fund of cash. So it's really saying that the sooner you can do this in any form, really, the better off you're going to be for the unexpected. So I don't get too much pushback on doing it. It's the allocations. It's why would I do this much of an allocation? So that's more of the kind of back and forth that I get. I don't know if you see something different on your side, but I always try to bring it back to this helps. You want to be cash flow positive.
Yeah, I think mainly the pushback I sometimes get is like, oh, it sounds really complicated, or our business is, different revenue streams, different real revenue, like where they feel like it's too complicated, which at the end of the day, it's still easy to set up ultimately. I think, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I've had a couple of clients come back. Well, one client come back and say that the bank themselves was very resistant in opening up several accounts. And sometimes the bookkeeper or the CPA doesn't like the process because of, so I mean, I think on that side of things, there's more of a pushback, but business owners are relatively open
Yeah.
to at least.
I mean, I think we have a little bias because probably we talk to a lot of people that want to improve their business too. Um, but I think the one other thing that I want to mention, maybe as a positive around all of this, is for maybe more of the early stage businesses, this is usually one of the first time they're entering territory of pro forma budgets and planning. Where in the past they have, they've run their books and they have their bookkeeper and they're getting their P&L and whatnot, and that's how the business has been performing. But with profit first and with the target allocations that we're aiming towards, we're forced to look into the future. We're forced to look into, okay, how do we improve this? And basically, it's kind of a catalyst to say, okay, we got to have a pro forma budget. And again, a more established business usually have a pro forma budget, but for a lot of it, it's like a stepping stone to actually seeing the reality of how closely their business plan or the vision is linked to a budget, and how those need to collaborate together. And so I like that. It's usually a very it's fun being with business owners in their learning experience with it, because then they're doing it with someone else that I guess there's less fear, or they can ask questions or whatnot. And then all of a sudden they actually have fun with numbers. And it's fun if you have money in your profit account and you take it into your hidden personal account and whatnot. And anyway, I just enjoy implementing that. But that would be one thing to add in terms of why it is helpful, is it catapults you into future looking as well. All right. Cool. Okay, I think that's it. That's it. And again, if any of our listeners want to have a deeper dive, we can be very methodical in how we're rolling out profit first, and walk you through in more detail. We're happy to do an episode on that as well. But this was just like an introductory conversation around that. And again, thank you guys for listening. Steven Kohnke, Simon Zryd, again, on our mission to empower business owners, build better, more profitable, valuable companies. Thanks for tuning in, and see you guys next week.
So yeah.